Hey guys, Mike Sherwood back again with some tips on how to deal with difficult tenants. So one of the things that I think is super important for all tenants, not just difficult tenants, is when you take over a place, either you have purchased the place, you're now managing it for another investor, or you've just inherited these sets of tenants for whatever reason. Um, it's important to set the groundwork up front. So meaning set the tone from the beginning and tell them that, hey, you're not somebody to be trifled with. You're going to run this as professionally as possible. This is a business for you. You're not going to cut people breaks. You're going to charge late fees and such. So you just got to set the tone up front. So now dealing with difficult tenants, one of the best pieces of advice I have for that is just be very meticulous about record keeping. The reason why I say that this is really important is these tenants, depending on what kind of situation you get into with them, they may say, hey, you're neglecting maintenance. So obviously if it's a maintenance issue, you need to be on top of it. Usually within our contracts, for example, we always say within 3 business days, we're going to repair or have some kind of action on some kind of work. And why we do that is to kind of, set the stage for what the expectation is and how we're going to move forward. Of course, if it's an emergency, it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to react as quickly as possible. But if it's something that, it's the work, we can schedule it over time with the tenant, we're going to respond or get back to them. Same thing with, dealing with any issues. Same thing. Whether it's a repair or just an issue, we're going to get back to them as soon as possible. Within a reasonable amount of time frame, which, like I said, is within 3 days, we're going to get back to you. If not sooner, if it's something that is an emergency, it just depends. So when dealing with these difficult tenants, document when you talk to them, what you talk about. For example, for us, we document all this information in our property management system, so all that data is there. So if somebody said, hey, oh, you didn't talk to me about this. Well, yeah, I did. I talked to you on 4/17 about this, and that because I documented the phone call. Now, with that said, that's actually one of the things that I don't recommend doing is when you're talking and consulting with a tenant and they are difficult, text them, email them, do not call them because it's too easy when it gets to court. It's a he said, she said, any of that kind of situation. We email almost exclusively with tenants or text them. So then that way we have a record of what's going on. So if we ever have to go to court, we can say, hey, yeah, we're communicating with this person. We told them on this day. So be very meticulous about that. Now, in the case of for us, we actually have a call management system and we can record calls if we want. So that may be an option. Once again, with that kind of situation, I'd make sure to consult an attorney in your area because depending on where you live, what state you reside in, one or both parties may have to opt into that. So that's something that you have to find out about. So another thing with these difficult tenants is you need to do the pre-move in inspection or at the time or when you take over, inspect the place. That isn't even for difficult tenants. That's just something you should do. The reason why is because then when you go to court, if something does happen with that difficult tenant, you have documentation. If you don't know what the place looked like beforehand, you're going to have problems. So that's one of the recommendations I give out to all people is make sure you have some documentation for that. Another thing that can be useful is if you have a particularly difficult tenant, you can give them cash for keys, which means basically, hey, I'm going to give you $200 cash if you're out in 2 weeks and the place is clean, and I'll give you the rest of your deposit. The reason why we do that, and the reason why I recommend that to multiple people is $200 cash is a lot of money for people. And just in general, I mean, that's a lot of money to me. It's an incentive for them to leave the place clean in addition to their security deposit. Because in many cases, their security deposit will be like, oh, I'm just going to use that for last month. Well, they're not supposed to do that. But in a lot of cases, they try to do that. So that's what I'm saying. If you can give them an incentive to move out and keep the place clean for you, because $200 is nothing compared to a tenant or a very bad tenant damaging your property, which could cost you much more, or if you're doing an eviction. So that's one of the things that I think is super, super important, and we've employed that strategy many, many times. It works. The other thing is sometimes you'll also deal with difficult tenants that are difficult with other tenants. This is something where it's kind of a tightrope and a fine balancing act, because when it comes to safety, safety is paramount. That's the most important thing for all tenants. So if it's a safety issue, you gotta investigate it. But at the same time, if this person's yelling at this person and this is that, tell them, hey, you're adults, you have to work it out. It's just like, playing with your little brother. Sometimes you guys aren't gonna get along. And same thing with your neighbors. Sometimes you're not gonna get along. You gotta work together as adults, and that's what I tell all of our tenants, especially if there's like a situation where, dealing with parking. They'll be like, oh, well, that's my parking spot. Well, no, we don't have assigned parking spots. Now, here's what I'll say. If one of you, leaves earlier in the morning, maybe you should be in a different position than you are. Just because then that make it easier for everybody to get out and everybody to be happy. So those were some tips that I have when dealing with difficult tenants, and just kind of some of the advice I've used over the years. I have some additional tips, so I will definitely be posting some additional videos surrounding tips for how to deal with difficult tenants, because I have lots of them. And if you guys have any advice or input, or you'd like to see a particular type of segment on this video blog, reach out to me. Thank you.